62. And our KSL weather, we'll get very sunny and warm weather for the weekend. That's next. KSL News Time 101.
Here's a way to get breaking news updates anywhere you go.
At the store or in a work meeting, you can get breaking news on your phone.
You can quickly read it, swipe, or click for more. It's super discreet, super fast.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
Hi, I'm Rachel, and I have a serious heart condition called hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, or HCM. Some symptoms include being short of breath, feeling tired, or having dizziness or chest pain. I still had symptoms on my beta blocker, so I asked my cardiologist about any treatment advances. It was a breakthrough for me. That's why I'm working with Bristol Myers Squibb to raise awareness about HCM and to help others like me. Talk to your cardiologist today and visit hcmrealtalk.com for more information.
Sponsored by Bristol Myers Squibb. Whether you own a local business or a global one, you know that these days, generating growth is a challenge. By teaming with Bank of America, you'll not just stay ahead of the curve, you'll move it. With access to experts, award-winning insights, and business solutions so powerful, you'll make every move matter, locally and globally. Visit bankofamerica.com/banking for business to learn more. What would you like the power to do? Copyright 2024 Bank of America N.A.
You're busy. We get it. Life moves fast, and there's hardly a moment to breathe. But for the next 10 seconds, this is your time. Deep breath in, deep breath out. Inhale, exhale. Feeling a little lighter? Taking action is one of the most powerful forms of self-care. In 2024, voting is self-care. Visit rockthevote.org and take action in just 3 easy steps. Check your registration, check in with yourself, and check your voting plan. Visit rockthevote.org.
Transform your old, outdated kitchen with half-price granite. For a limited time, half-price granite is offering special pricing starting at $25 per square foot installed. That's lower than most big box stores. These prices are some of the lowest around. Granite, quartz, marble, and quartzite, all starting at $25 per square foot installed. Call 801-486-1700 or visit halfpricegranite.com. Half-price granite, affordable luxury.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
We do have a crash with possible injuries. Several vehicles involved with this one. Northbound I-15 near 33rd South. One vehicle has been blocking a center lane of travel. Also, an accident called out in Taylorsville, 5400 South, 3200 West. Definitely seeing some westbound delays. UDOT construction alert. The intersection of State Street and 300 North at Capitol Hill is now closed for the construction of a new roundabout. Follow the posted detour signs. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Look for sunny and hot weather through the weekend. High of 94 on Saturday and Sunday, and that could set some new records. And right now, we're at 82 degrees in Salt Lake with sunny skies. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com for Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio. Inside Sources, an inside look at 2024 presidential politics.
We're going to come at you right out of the gate today with our regular Friday feature, Inside Sources, Inside Look at Presidential Politics. And world leaders, of course, have been in New York City most of the last several days in a United Nations General Assembly. Among those leaders that was in attendance was Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. He made a trip to the Capitol, met with both President Biden and with former President Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris. A busy couple of days for the president of Ukraine. And we want to figure out what this all means and what we should learn from everything that's taken place in terms of messaging and what's going on and really what the relationship is going to be with Ukraine, no matter who wins the presidency in November. So let's break it down, a little bit of a tale of two press conferences today. Earlier in New York City, Mr. Trump and Mr. Zelensky answered some press questions before they went in to their private meeting.
First of all, it's very important to share all the plan, all our steps, how we can strengthen Ukraine. And of course, we have to decide it now, because after November, we don't know who is. Only Americans decide who will be the president. But we understand that till November, we can't stop Putin. We have to do it. We will try on the battlefield. That's why I decided to meet with both candidates with all honor.
An important message there from President Zelensky saying, look, regardless of who wins the presidency in November, we can't wait until the United States decides who's going to lead next, because we're trying to stop Vladimir Putin right now. And so that was the reason for the visit and why that was important. Mr. Trump emphasized a need for a deal to end the war and prompted a response from President Zelensky when he mentioned that he also had this very good relationship with the Russian president.
So we have a very good relationship, and I also have a very good relationship, as you know, with President Putin. And I think if we win, I think we're going to get it resolved very quickly. I really think we're going to get it
I
resolved.
hope we have more good relations.
We're going to have, I see. Yeah, but you know, it takes two to tango, you know, and we will, we're going to have a good meeting today. I think that we can work out something that's good for both sides. It's time. And by the way, the president knows that too. He wants to get something done.
So, of course, Mr. Trump saying that he had a good relationship both with President Zelensky and with Mr. Putin. And I thought that was a very interesting, spontaneous moment from President Zelensky saying, well, I hope ours is a more very good relationship with the United States, and really sending that message that, hey, you can have your relationship with Vladimir Putin if you want, but we're more on your side than he is. And so that was an interesting moment, again, before they went in for their meeting. Now, yesterday, President Zelensky met with Congress, with President Biden, and then he did a public press appearance with Vice President Kamala Harris. Here's how she framed our nation's role in the conflict.
To be safe, secure, and prosperous, the United States must continue to fulfill our long-standing role of global leadership. The United States cannot and should not isolate ourselves from the rest of the world. Isolation is not insulation.
So interesting, coming from Vice President Harris, President Zelensky in that same press conference, again side by side with Vice President Harris, highlighted the objectives for the Ukrainian war effort, especially as they head into winter.
It's a top priority for us and for other freedom-loving nations to achieve not a freezing, but real peace for us. So we need to keep sanctions against Russia strong. We need to urgently strengthen Ukraine's air defense to save thousands of lives and reduce Russian terror to zero. It's achievable.
So really interesting as you watched all this play out. I have to tell you, when I was watching things play out yesterday, the amount of time in the formal press conference with Vice President Harris raised some questions for me in terms of who's really driving the current administration, and I think that's a challenge because it doesn't appear that President Biden was all that engaged, or that he had a whole lot to say in terms of that interaction. Now, he's the president of the United States, and until he's not, he is. And I thought it was a little bit disconcerting to either say, okay, he's either not engaged with it, and if he's not, then who's steering the ship? Or has he been isolated? Has the president been isolated? And I wonder if he felt a little bit of angst and frustration that there was so much focus on the meeting between Mr. Zelensky and Vice President Harris. Both of those scenarios have got to be a little disconcerting inside the administration. Because remember, their job is to govern right now. I know there's this election thing going on, but this is about governing. An important area of the world, a conflict that's been going on for 2 years. We're heading into winter. As President Zelensky pointed out, that Vladimir Putin wants to weaponize the winter once again. They're targeting core energy development and distribution there inside of Ukraine. And so all of that, I think, is really interesting. And then, of course, you compound that with the uncertainty of the election, a separate issue. And it creates a lot of uncertainty. And that uncertainty benefits Mr. Putin. Whenever there is uncertainty, dictators, thugs, and bad guys figure they've got a green light, and they can be a little more aggressive, a little more assertive, and take a few more chances than they otherwise might if things were a little more settled, a little more certain. And so I think all of these press conferences over the last 24 hours, literally in 24 hours, the president of Ukraine met with the president of the United States, the vice president of the United States, also happens to be the Democratic candidate for the president of the United States, and the former president of the United States, also a candidate for president of the United States. That's a little head spinning. And it has to be creating some uncertainty and some concern, not just in Ukraine, but a lot of other places, a lot of other allies around the world have got to be wondering, okay, what's really going on and who's really in charge and who will be in charge? All of that creates uncertainty and chaos, and the beneficiary of all of that is one Vladimir Putin. Now, one of the other things that I want to point out that is part of kind of a think again, in addition to this being our focus on presidential politics, and that is the fact that when Mr. Zelensky came to Washington this time, things have changed a lot in less than 2 years, and where he was really heralded, was kind of had rock star status in his first few visits to Capitol Hill less than 2 years ago. Standing room only crowds, a lot of big ovations, receptions, and it shows how easy it is for us over here to forget, to get distracted, or to get caught up in the politics of it all. And that's why I wanted to include this in our Inside Sources, Inside Look at Presidential Politics section today, because the politics of Ukraine and Russia have played a pretty negative effect, I think, in terms of making good decisions, good leadership decisions, not good political decisions. Those are very different things. And so it appears that with Congress leaving, it was a case of bad timing, I think, for President Zelensky. He showed up in Washington after Congress had done the amazing. They did another continuing resolution. And so what did they do as soon as they had passed that? Knowing they have from now until just before Christmas, they all went home to campaign. So nobody was in Washington. So it was a little bit of an empty chamber effect for President Zelensky in his return to our nation's capital. And again, I think that's a little disconcerting because it's the politics of it. And even some of the things that were said. You had Senator John Cornyn, Republican of Texas, saying, hey, President Zelensky's an admirable person. He showed a lot of courage and leadership in tough times. And, you know, Ukrainians are awesome. But this was not the shoulder-to-shoulder, link and lock arms. Let's make sure we stand for freedom. Let's make sure that sovereign territory remains sovereign and all of those things that are so vital to all of this. So, sadly, a lot of this is getting wrapped up in the politics of it rather than the statesmanship of it and the leadership of it. Which is where we actually have to get. All right, that's Inside Sources, Inside Look at Presidential Politics this week. We'll step aside for a quick break. Don't go anywhere. More Inside Sources coming up next. Stick around. We'll be right back.
An improbable path to 4-0.
Sione Moa. He wanted Moa, and he kept going all the way in for 6. Run of the year.
This week, BYU is back on the road for another Big 12 showdown. BYU Baylor pregame starts at 7 in the morning with kickoff at 10 on Utah's legacy home for the Cougars, KSL News Radio.
This is the day of the big sale at your gift shop.
Welcome in.
So this isn't just a big day for your business. It's a big day for the network keeping it all connected. That is, if it can handle the pressure.
Next in line, please.
So is it possible to get business internet you can really count on? It is. With 99.9% network reliability from Comcast Business. It's like this neat little bow.
Do you like that gift wrap?
Really ties it all together. Reliable internet for your business. It's not just possible. It's happening. Comcast Business. Powering possibilities.
Switch to Comcast Business and get started with reliable internet and advanced security for $49.99 a month for 12 months with a 2-year agreement. Plus, ask how to get up to a $500 prepaid card with a qualifying internet package. Don't wait. Call or go online to switch today. Offer ends 10/13/24. Restrictions apply. New customers only with 150 megabit per second internet. Eco bill and auto pay required. Equipment, taxes, and fees extra. After 12 months, regular rates apply.
This song doesn't have a name, but if it did, it'd probably be something about togetherness, because it's a collaboration, not between pop stars and producers, but between music therapists and kids. Music therapy is a treatment that doesn't involve medication or needles, and it's been proven to help children manage pain and contribute to faster healing. So it shouldn't surprise you, it's our favorite song. And just one way we partner with you for a life well lived. Intermountain Health, the power of we.
We have 5 kids, 2 dogs, and we've bought 4 houses in the last 12 years. So our realtors helped us through the complexities of buying a house, the legalities of different property rights, right-of-ways, building concerns, or even ordinances, right?
If we were to try to do this on our own, we would have made a lot of financial mistakes. The realtor is now part of our family. She's who helps our family get to wherever our next chapter is.
Discover how a realtor can make a real difference at myrealtorstory.com.
Join Lagoon's maintenance and construction team for the most thrilling job around. Lagoon is looking for exceptional ride technicians, skilled carpenters, electricians, plumbers, and more. Lagoon offers excellent training programs with amazing career opportunities. These positions are both full-time and year-round. Apply online today at lagoonpark.com/jobs. Join the Lagoon team and help us maintain the fun. Must be 18 years of age or older to apply.
Want to keep your gas-powered engines running like new? Stable's proprietary formulas are proven by third-party testing to outperform the competition in keeping fuel fresh, preventing corrosion, and cleaning the entire fuel system. With Stable, you can have confidence you are doing the right thing for your engine's long-term health. Just pour into your gas can or fuel tank, then top off with fresh fuel. At every fill-up or when you store, start with Stable. Available where fuel additives are sold.
Drivers who switch and save with Progressive could save hundreds, which could be life-changing. I mean, you could put that money towards that zero-turn lawnmower you've always wanted. And after using its head-shaping technology to meticulously sculpt the face of the Mona Lisa into your grass, you'll become the undisputed king of Saturday morning lawn care, leaving your neighbor and sworn enemy Gary to question his place in the delicate neighborhood ecosystem. And it's all because you could save money switching at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, not available in all states.
Any Hour Services free furnace sale is going on right now. If you haven't scheduled your free estimate yet, what are you waiting for? Call Any Hour Services today or schedule online at anyhourservices.com.
Jeff Kaplan. When you're online, that's sometimes a source of fourth-hand information. Somebody does the reporting. Another website Googles, they find it, they rewrite it, and by the time you read it, you know the old game telephone. But KSL is a source of primary information. We have reporters on the street. They're out in the field finding out the details. And the difference between online and KSL News Radio, night and day.
Jeff Kaplan's Afternoon News, 3 to 7 on KSL News Radio.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, rows of houses, even a supermarket, just disappeared in Cedar Key, Florida last night when Hurricane Helene came ashore. Second, rescue teams out on Utah Lake this afternoon where a light plane crashed into the water near Saratoga Springs. And third, Utah's FanX convention is bringing visitors from all over to the Salt Palace. 82 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson, and as we all know, control of the Senate is going to have a big impact on how the next 4 years play out, no matter who wins the presidency. But there are some senators in some pretty hotly contested races that are feeling a little bit of a pinch in the fundraising department, mostly because the dollars that typically flow don't seem to be. What's the problem? What's the challenge? It may go to this principle I often refer to as there really aren't any problems in organizations. There's just personalities and egos, and this may well be one of those. Alexander Bolton, of course, covers the Senate for The Hill and has a great piece on there about 2 of those senators that are in tight races, Senator Cruz and Senator Scott, and both of them have run up against the Mitch McConnell machine. Both have been critics of the senior senator from Kentucky, and we want to get underneath the hood and see what's actually happening there. And Alex, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me on.
All right. we know that Senator McConnell wields a lot of power and a lot of influence. And give us a sense of what we're seeing from two senators who've been pretty critical of Senator McConnell, Ted Cruz and Rick Scott.
Well, two of McConnell's biggest critics in the Senate Republican Conference are Ted Cruz and Rick Scott of Florida. And those two conservatives have been leading the push pretty much since the 2022 election to get McConnell out of the leadership. And they really ratcheted up their efforts during that fight over Ukraine funding earlier this year. McConnell did announce that he would be stepping down from leadership at the end of this year. So he is about to end his record-long reign as Republican Party leader in the Senate. But now we may be seeing a little payback, although, of course, McConnell and his allies deny any such thing as happening. But both Cruz and Rick Scott are in tough reelection races right now. The Democratic Central Campaign Committee announced this week that they are now going to be spending millions of dollars in those two states to try to knock them off. Cruz, in particular, running in Texas, he expects to be dramatically outraised by his Democratic opponent, Colin Allred, who's a representative. That's because Democrats from around the country are just sending loads of cash into Texas to try to knock off Ted Cruz. They hate him so much. He is a top target. And Cruz isn't getting any help from something called the Senate Leadership Fund. And that is it's a super PAC, and it's one that McConnell has raised $1 billion for over the years. And Cruz could benefit from some of that money now because he's getting dramatically outspent. He won his reelection in 2018 by only 2 percentage points. But SLF, Senate Leadership Fund, not coming to Cruz's rescue. Its CEO, Stephen Law, who is McConnell's former chief of staff, says, look, I'm not worried about Texas, but he's not coming to his aid. And Cruz is, I think, pretty nervous about his reelection race right now.
Yeah, and he should be. I think that it's going to be a very tight race and a lot of shifting dynamics there in the state of Texas. And when you're outspent and outraised, that always raises a lot of concern, especially where there's a lot of Republicans who feel like there is a chance they could take the Senate as they look at the map in terms of places like West Virginia and Montana, where they could flip a few seats. And this is an interesting one. I've seen this one up close. I've seen the Mitch McConnell nod and watched some consulting groups disappear, some printing organizations lose all their business. And it's an interesting one because it is this super PAC, so it's technically outside of the realm. He can't control that, although, as you mentioned, his former chief of staff is driving the ship there. How does this look to play out moving forward? Florida, of course, is the other big one where they seem to be turning their head the other way and focusing on some of these other races.
Well, Florida is another state where Rick Scott has a tough race. Now, his opponent isn't quite as strong as Cruz's opponent. He's running against a former representative, Debbie Mucarsel-Powell, who was a one-term representative in the House. But what makes the race in Florida difficult is there is a statewide ballot initiative to protect abortion rights. Obviously, abortion is a very big issue in Florida after Governor Ron DeSantis signed a 6-week abortion ban. Rick Scott isn't popular in Florida. Now, the advantage he has over Cruz is that, personally, he's very wealthy. His net worth is somewhere between $270 million, $800 million. But look, like I said, Democratic Central Committee is going to be playing in that state. And the question is, are we going to see the Senate Leadership Fund, which McConnell has raised so much money for, or the National Republican Senatorial Committee come in and help Scott out? And I think really what we're seeing here is that Democrats are targeting these races, and the two incumbents, Republican incumbents, are the folks that really helped push McConnell out of leadership. They were his biggest critics. Scott challenged him for the leadership role at the end of 2022, and so it doesn't look like McConnell really wants to direct millions of dollars to their states, and kind of the official line is, well, we're going to win those anyway. We'd rather focus on Montana and Ohio and some of these other battlegrounds.
Yeah, so fascinating. You pointed this out in your piece at thehill.com, that it's so interesting to see between the Senate Leadership Fund, which again is this super PAC, that is led by Senator McConnell's former chief of staff. And then you have the NRSC, which is the more formal, the National Republican Senate Committee, all kind of looking at these races. You pointed out Ohio, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Montana as places where the Democrats are a little more vulnerable. Is this have the potential to be one of those moments where the Republicans prove once again how good they are at snatching defeat from the jaws of victory? Could they win some of these hard races and end up losing the Senate because of places that they should be strong, like Texas and Florida?
Well, I think, my sense is that, the Senate Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer, is hoping to steal one of these races in Texas or Florida. He is very confident about keeping the majority. And, John Tester, the Democrat in Montana, looks like he certainly has an uphill fight there. Trump won Montana by 17 points in 2020. It's really hard to imagine that, Tester's going to overcome a 17-point gap at the top of the ticket. So I think, I sat down with Schumer, as did other reporters at the Democratic Convention in Chicago. I mean, he was quite optimistic about keeping the Senate, and he really talked up Democratic chances in Texas particularly. So, could Republicans beat Tester in Montana, but then not win the majority because they let, Cruz slip through the cracks? It's not impossible. But, look, Cruz is, he's had tough races before. He eked out a tough one in 2018. So, we'll see.
Yeah. Great insight as always. Anything else you're watching kind of underneath the headlines in a lot of these Senate races as we march towards the first Tuesday of November?
Well, I think, one of the key, factors is abortion referenda, talking ballot initiatives to protect abortion rights. How many voters is it going to drive to the polls for Democrats in Florida? Big question there. Also, it's also on the ballot in Montana and Arizona. So, we could see other races where that's a factor. Look, talking to pollsters, it's all about turnout this cycle. And so I think one of the real big questions is, will Trump's turnout exceed, projections as it did in 2016 and 2020? And what will that mean for Senate races? And on the flip side, is the Kamala Harris hype for real? Will young voters and minority voters actually, surge to the polls like they did for Barack Obama years ago? That's really an untested hypothesis, and that's one that I'll be very interested in seeing how it plays out on election night.
Fantastic analysis, as always. Alexander Bolton covers the Senate for The Hill. Great piece at thehill.com. And Alex, as always, we appreciate your insight and perspective, and I'm sure we'll be talking again before we get to November. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, that's Alexander Bolton once again joining us. He covers the Senate for The Hill. Check out his piece at thehill.com. And to me, this is a fascinating one to watch. You got all these races going on. You got a lot of eyes on Montana. You have a lot of Republicans licking their chops thinking, maybe we can take the Senate. And yet here you've got a couple of races, incumbents in Rick Scott in Florida and Ted Cruz in Texas. They're in really tough, really tight races. And the dollars and cents aren't flowing their way. And part of that is a Mitch McConnell-led effort to say, nope, they're on their own. They opposed me. They were a thorn in my side for too long. And even though Mitch McConnell's going to leave the building at the end of the year, he will leave his mark, and it will last for a really long time. All right, we'll step aside for bottom of the hour news. More Inside Sources coming up next. Stick around. We'll be right back.
It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. We have breaking news. We're learning now the names of the 5 adults who were killed in a multi-vehicle crash on U.S. Highway 6 last night. The Highway Patrol says the 2 couples in one car were from Minnesota. That includes 56-year-old Song Her, 38-year-old Lee Tao, 26-year-old Bei Moa, 25-year-old Mai Lor. The 35-year-old man who was riding an ATV in that accident also has been identified as Gustavo Mendoza from Helper. Tropical storm Helene moved inland today, and it's being blamed now for 28 deaths in Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina. Helene has brought historic flooding, heavy rainfall, and tornadoes to many areas. Millions of people were without power In Florida, where Helene made landfall, Governor Ron DeSantis.
There's damage in many places. Some of the places in the further northern part of the state, once you get past the Big Bend coast, you got a lot of wind damage. You had 140-mile-an-hour sustained winds. It kind of barreled through.
In North Carolina, areas around Asheville, Flat Rock, and Charlotte were hit the hardest, with dozens of water rescues underway. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up on the day still, 188 points right now, and the NASDAQ is down by 72. We'll have sunshine and possibly record-breaking warm temperatures this weekend. That's next. KSL News Time, 1:31.
News doesn't just mean information or dates.
It's the story of our local history being told in real time.
Be a part of the story. This is Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
We hope to be a part of your story. We have you covered on KSL News Radio.
Don't miss Utah Symphony's annual Celebración Sinfónica Festival at Marisa Bravanel Hall. September 27th and 28th, experience a lively concert celebrating Latin American and Spanish cultures. And on Saturday the 28th from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m., stop by the plaza to find artisan crafts, grab a bite from local food vendors, watch talented dancers perform, and more. Tickets start at just $10. Visit utahsymphony.org/festival for details.
Trail mix, beef jerky, mixing all the soda flavors at the gas station soda machine. Snacks are better on the road. The gas is better when it's top tier. And the pit stop is better when there's a dinosaur there. Love the filler moments at a Sinclair gas station near you with DinoCare, our top tier gasoline. Some sweet and salty snacks for the commute, and a big green dino for the memories. Find a gas station near you at sinclairoil.com. Sinclair, fill up your life.
Purchase new wiper blades from O'Reilly Auto Parts today and we'll install them for free. See better and drive safer with O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Time is of the essence with COVID-19. Prescription oral treatment must be taken within the first 5 days of symptoms. If you have a high risk factor, ask your doctor if treatment is right for you. Learn more at treatcovid19.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Point! Hey, you okay? You don't normally miss those shots.
I just haven't been as regular lately, and it's making me feel sluggish.
You should try Metamucil. It's been a game changer for me. Metamucil's plant-based psyllium fiber helps trap and remove the waste that weighs you down. Ace, you're moving better than you were last week.
Definitely.
Metamucil keeps you moving. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Learn more at metamucil.com.
We've been telling you guys about how Master Electrical Services has joined Mountain Home Services, but you want to talk about one-stop shopping. Mountain Home Services has it all right now.
That's right. Not only do they do your electrical and your HVAC needs, but now let's add fireplaces to the mix.
I don't know anyone in the world that loves a fireplace, a gas fireplace like my mother. In the summer, she will fire it up. She loves it so much. And now Mountain Home Services can take care of all of this for you and pick out a beautiful fireplace for your house.
It all comes with their upfront pricing guarantee, which means there are no hidden fees and 100% satisfaction guaranteed.
And they will install. Mountain Home Services, this isn't going to be like some third party that comes into your house. You're going to get the same expertise that Mountain Home Services has always offered. Again, this is the company that we trust, and so can you.
Find them online at mountainhomeutah.com. That's mountainhomeutah.com.
Or give them a call at 801-543-2222. That's 801-543-2222.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
We have a new accident. This is going to be on that ramp from westbound I-80 to go to southbound I-215's West Belt. Some of the vehicles are out of traffic over to the right shoulder. However, we're still waiting for emergency crews to arrive at the scene. Some good news for drivers on northbound I-15. The crash that we had at 33rd South has been cleared. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Sunny and hot through the weekend. Today's high 90, up to 94 tomorrow and Sunday, when we could set temperature records for the date. And right now, 82 degrees and sunny. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources.
Inside Sources.
America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, in a world increasingly focused on productivity and economic value, the role of motherhood and the inherent dignity of human life are subjects of profound importance. An upcoming book by Nadia Williams explores how ancient Christian perspectives can inform our modern understanding of these crucial roles and topics. And by examining historical attitudes and contemporary challenges, we can think again about what we think we know about our cultural values and the way we view human worth and value. And Nadia Williams, of course, is a homeschool mom, book review editor at Current, contributing editor at Providence Magazine, and her new book, Mothers, Children, and the Body Politic, Ancient Christianity and the Recovery of Human Dignity, is coming out in mid-October. And Nadia, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you back on, and there are so many things that I know you've got coming in this book, and the one that we really want to zero in on today is this whole idea of human dignity and human worth. It seems like, especially in the midst of a presidential election cycle, everything gets conflated into bullet points, and it's this or that, fake fights, false choices, and you're really inviting people to look at it all just a little bit differently. Explain that.
Yeah. Some of it has to do with assumptions, cultural assumptions that we make, and a lot of it is remarkably modern, just how everybody talks about things. And really, it's the modern life. You know, you get up in the morning, you go to work, and you do things. You don't think necessarily about what signals you're sending. And what I'm saying is that a lot of our assumptions are faulty or at least corrupted by modern values. So, like the whole idea of work as the chief end, like what will satisfy you in life. And so often the language that people hear, even like college students, is pursue career, put that first. Career success really matters. And it does. But the question is kind of to go back to like the old catechism question, what is the chief end of man? And if we think about like the catechism basic answer to glorify God and enjoy him forever, suddenly you realize, okay, that's a little bit different. And my argument is if we look at the ancient world, pre-Christian pagans also had a very faulty view of humanity. Of course, they weren't necessarily putting work first, but they had their own idols, and they certainly did not see people as valuable. And so today, with the parallel, again, we don't see people as intrinsically valuable because we've lost that idea of people as God's image bearers.
I think that's such an important part of this conversation, and it's been so interesting to see just the framing of all of these things and identity in particular. And of course, you had the Surgeon General just a few weeks ago released a report really with a lot of the stigmas of, you know, it's stress related to parenting. And yes, there is stress related to parenting, but really painting this picture that it's awful and it's painful. It's a death sentence to anything that matters, as opposed to the meaning and the value and the dignity. How do we reframe the conversation in just a little different way?
A lot of it has to do with priorities. And if we think about what are eternal priorities versus short-term here and now priorities. So the Surgeon General's warning was kind of like, it's in a way, and I don't think he meant it that way, but in a way it's almost like pursue fun. Do the things that bring you fun right now. Okay, so what's going to be fun right now? And then we get into that whole like the dink culture that we've seen, like dual income, no kids. Well, that's a lot of fun. But the question is this really like eternal priorities? And that's where devaluing family comes into it. And so in the book, I focus specifically on all this language that's devaluing mothers and children, since, you know, children are what mothers produce. Like you can't have one without the other. But ultimately what it means is devaluing people. If you're saying, well, people are just not worth it, people are just not fun, because the reality is it's not just kids who are like difficult and steal our sleep. The reality is like every family, like if
Families
you've
are
been
messy.
around people, families are messy. They're also wonderful.
Yeah.
But the point is, like, it's always going to be people who cost you sleep, who cost you convenience, because that's just the nature of people.
Yeah.
But all of us are going to need to be inconvenient to somebody at some point in our lives.
Yeah, that is exactly right. One of the other things you point out in the book, and I just love the way you frame this, and that is that one of the things that we have lost in our society and in our culture is this imagination around families. Unpack that a little for us.
Yeah. So imagination really matters, because you can't aim for something that you don't even like have in mind. So the imagination of family. I look at children's books from the mid-century, and something like Richard Scarry is really prime example of that. Richard Scarry books are all about the family. So I talk, for instance, about one story where there's a dad bunny who is talking to his baby bunny, and it's kind of like the question of like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And there are all these relatives in the room who are kind of shouting out like job descriptions, like you could be a candy maker because, like that's a great job.
Cool.
You could, yeah, I know, right? I never had that imagined. Anyway, you could fly airplanes. You could do all kinds of things. But then we learn at the end of the story that the baby bunny is thinking, you know what? I could be a daddy bunny. I could have kids. And I thought this is just so fascinating, because how many best-selling children books do you see today that have that message? Right. I haven't come across any. And I remember a few years ago when my middle son was a newborn, and I was looking for a Father's Day book for my husband, and couldn't really find anything like really edifying along those lines. And that was really striking. So we've kind of lost that imagination. And without that sort of imagination, even in children's books, the messaging that everybody gets from a young age is, not treasuring family.
Yeah, so powerful. I want to get to two things real quickly before I let you go. And again, another thing that I think you frame so well is that it's not just this battle between pro-life and pro-choice. Again, there are components to all of that, but of course, it all involves the lives of a mother and a baby. And again, this combination that you have pointed out, but that we really should be having a conversation about human flourishing. And there's so many lessons from history. And of course, you go to some of those Christian values in terms of valuing human dignity and life, especially as you look backwards in time, ancient Christianity. So what is it from ancient Christianity that we should learn in terms of creating that culture that is pro-human flourishing?
So human flourishing is so much more than just preserving life, right? It's not just like, well, you got to live, but it's about valuing the person as a priceless image bearer of God. And so some of the examples I look at, I was struck when I was looking at Jesus's interactions with people. We see a lot of interactions with the vulnerable, and especially single women in trouble. Even like the story like Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. You look at Jesus's interactions with them, and he very much wants them to flourish, which involves spending time with them, paying attention to these people that everybody else in their village kind of ignored.
Wow, that is powerful. If you want to get to human flourishing, it starts with time and one-on-one. That connectedness is so important. Nadia Williams, as always, great perspective. Again, her new book, Mothers, Children, and the Body Politic, Ancient Christianity and the Recovery of Human Dignity. And I would add to that human divinity. I think those are all interrelated. Nadia, as always, thanks so much for joining us. Great perspective.
Thank you so much.
All right. Great perspective there from Nadia Williams. And again, her book is coming out on October the 15th. Really fascinating stuff in terms of our culture, our imagination around family, culture of life, and human flourishing. Those are all things we ought to think again about what we think we know. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Nate Orchard, the mayor of Sac Lake City with Advanced Window Products.
And I'm Jake, the other guy.
Are your windows old and inefficient and driving up your energy bills?
It's time for an upgrade. Our energy-efficient windows not only look great, but also help you save on your utility bills.
And right now, we're offering an incredible deal. $2,500 off when you purchase 10 windows or more.
That's right, $2,500 in savings to make your home more comfortable and energy efficient.
Plus, we offer a lifetime warranty on all our windows, so you can have peace of mind.
Don't wait. Call us today at 801-850-9100 or visit us at advancedwindows.com to schedule your free estimate. We also offer payment plans as low as $150 a month.
From our factory to your installation in 8 weeks or less. Call us today at 801-850-9100 or visit us at advancedwindows.com to schedule your free estimate.
Advanced Window Products, Utah's window experts.
You trust us for news and information in your car. Now trust us at home. KSL News Radio has you covered, keeping you informed on the latest breaking news, weather, traffic, sports, and more. Listen on your Amazon Echo or Google Home device. Just say, Alexa, open KSL News Radio. Or listen on the KSL News Radio Listen app. Text the word app to 57500. KSL News Radio. We have you covered.
When was the last time you truly felt confident in your smile? At Stubbs Dental Implant Center, they believe every man deserves to face the world with a strong, healthy grin. As two-time Utah's Best of State winner, Stubbs Dental Implant Center has helped men from all walks of life transform their smiles and their confidence through advanced dental implants. Their team of experts is committed to changing not just your teeth, but your entire outlook on life. Imagine sinking your teeth into a juicy steak without hesitation, laughing out loud at your buddy's jokes, or nailing that big presentation with a winning smile. That's the kind of freedom Stubbs Dental Implant Center can give you. With 4 convenient locations across Utah, in Layton, Bountiful, Murray, and Lehigh, Stubbs Dental Implant Center is ready to help you take charge of your dental health. It's time to eat, smile, and live life to the fullest again. Don't settle for less. Visit StubbsDental.com. Find out more today at StubbsDental.com.
Tommy! I can't wait for golf this weekend, huh, buddy? Time flies. Love you, man. Oh, don't forget your knee brace again. We aren't in college anymore.
Moments together matter, so help protect yourself from RSV. If you're 75 or older or 60 plus with a chronic condition like asthma, COPD, heart disease, or severe diabetes, you're at higher risk of landing in the hospital from RSV, and there are no prescription RSV treatments. Check eligibility and schedule your RSV vaccine at vaxassist.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Sweet chocolate reward. Sweet chocolate reward.
This is not just the sound of someone picking up a sweet treat at Walgreens. This is the sound of someone picking up a sweet treat right after receiving all their vaccines in one trip. This is the sound of treating yourself, because you protected yourself.
Stop by or schedule both your flu and COVID-19 vaccines today and grab yourself a sweet treat while you're at it. Vaccine subject to availability. State, age, and health-related restrictions may apply.
Autumn is in the air. Now's the time when little ghouls and boys should visit This Is the Place Heritage Park's Little Haunts. Little Haunts opens Friday and Saturdays in October, starting October 11th through the 25th. Little Haunts is a family-friendly adventure where you can dress up and experience the not-so-scary creepy-crawly encounters. Delight in friendly witches. Ride a train. Sip cider and experience storytelling in cooler mountainside air. Changing leaves surrounded by wagons loaded with pumpkins. Your adventure wouldn't be complete without the hands-on learning and immersive experience of take-home crafts. Petting live animals. A fall pony ride. Combined with all your favorite Halloween trick or sweet treat traditions. For fall family adventure, hours, and Little Haunts information, visit thisistheplace.org.
Join the KSL Real Estate Show at a special time this Saturday. Listen at 6 a.m. before the BYU pregame. Learn how to choose the right real estate agent Saturday morning at 6.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, at least 28 people have died as Hurricane Helene crashed through Florida and into 4 other states. Second, the names of the 5 people killed in a multi-vehicle crash near Price have now been released. Third, it's been a super busy weekend in downtown Salt Lake with Fan X, the circus, sports events all underway. 82 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City, And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
This is going to be a think again moment for you. In our quest to make a positive impact in the world, we often find ourselves torn between the desires to optimize our charitable giving and the impulse to respond to immediate needs around us. It is an interesting conflict, and we're going to dig into that. I think this is one that many of us struggle with. And how do we navigate all of this, and why does it matter, and what is the impact? Great piece at Vox. Sigal Samuel, senior reporter for Vox's Future Perfect and co-host of the Future Perfect podcast, and just has a great piece on, I give to charity, but I don't give to people on the street. Is that wrong? What should we be thinking about? And Sigal, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
I love this piece because I think it's one that a lot of us kind of think through a little bit. We want to optimize. Optimization is so important. Want to maximize. But we also have this tug and pull of compassion. And kind of walk us through your journey on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I should say this piece is actually part of a new philosophical advice column that I've launched at Vox.com, which is called Your Mileage May Vary. And in this particular one,
I love that.
I'm responding to a reader who is asking, like, I think I have a duty to help poor people. I give 10% of my salary to charities that I think are effective. But I also encounter people who are unhoused on the street, and my brain is saying that's not an effective way to help people. Other people might need my money more. But, my heart is saying, oh, this person on the street right in front of me, needs help, right? And so I actually think this is a case where we are, as a society right now, in a moment of peak optimization. The logic of optimization really guides us a lot in how we think about things. And to a certain degree, that's good. Optimization is certainly relevant in some domains of life, but I think that sometimes we overstretch it and try to apply optimization in all domains. Yeah. And the problem is we actually, as humans, have multiple things that we value. Sure, we value, helping people in the world as much as we possibly can, but we also value integrity. When the philosopher Bernard Williams talked about integrity, he meant in the sense of integration, wholeness, being like a whole person. And he argued that, you're not just some kind of moral robot going through the world. You're a specific individual. You have specific commitments, and it wouldn't make sense to ask you to operate in the world like some sort of objective maximizing machine. Yeah. You are an individual who's encountering an individual on the street. It's natural that you would feel moved to help them as well, and not only be an optimizing machine thinking how to get the biggest bang for your charitable buck.
Yeah, so important. And I love the way you frame this in your piece at Vox.com, that there's the core value, helping people, and then the strategy masquerading as a value. And I love that you framed it that way, that it's a strategy masquerading as a value in terms of that optimization. And so walk us through in terms of how we should be kind of processing that. I love this idea of getting beyond just being a machine and we see something, we do something. How do we think about this differently?
So I think if you're someone who wants to optimize how much good you can do in the world, I would say great impulse. We want to make the world as good as we can. But that's not the only value we hold dear. So what I personally do when it comes to giving charity is I say to myself, okay, I have this impulse to do as much good as possible. And so, but I also have this impulse to help people I meet directly. So I will sort of diversify my giving portfolio. What I personally do is I keep a small amount of money or gift cards on me when I'm just walking around on the street. And if I encounter someone directly, sometimes I will just give that individual a small amount of money. I also donate a larger amount to a local or national charity that I think has a very strong track record. I live in D.C., for example, and I donate to Miriam's Kitchen because I happen to know they have a strong track record of helping unhoused people. And then I think about internationally, how can I get the most bang for my charitable buck? And I know that our dollar goes much further abroad in developing countries where extreme poverty is most concentrated. And so I give a larger amount to Give Directly, which is a charity that gives money directly to people in poverty in other parts of the world. So I think it makes sense to divvy up your donations that way. It's a way of simultaneously recognizing the validity and greatness of our impulse to help as much as we can, while also honoring the fact that we're humans. We have multiple values. We're not robots. We also care about the person we encounter on the street. And if we kind of ignore them in the name of optimization, we're going to feel like callous. We're going to feel like jerks. And that's going to erode something in our own moral conscience.
Yeah. This piece is so wonderful. You get bonus points for quoting our friend Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sachs. He was we got to have him on this show shortly before he passed away. It was one of his very last interviews. But he always gets us to rethink a whole host of things. But I love this section of your piece where you talked about on one hand, it's you can give the fancy meal to someone who's fallen into poverty. Another goes out and is their servant for a day. And then this whole debate of if you give someone exactly what they need to stay exactly where they are, is that really being helpful or not?
Yeah, so in this part of the piece, I was trying to get at the fact that when you're trying to optimize, that kind of requires you to have a very clear, confident answer to, what is the good? What is the thing we're trying to optimize? And it's very easy to kind of fall into this trap of boiling that down to one kind of quantifiable thing. And so, typically when we think, who are the neediest people, we'll just think of financial need, which that's valid. But, there's also other things like psychological need. And this is where I bring in the insight from the Jewish tradition. The ancient rabbis were super sensitive to the psychological needs of poor people. So they said, that should also be taken into account. And so, they had this decree that you shouldn't only give the poor person enough money to survive on, you should give them more so they themselves can give charity to others. And Rabbi Jonathan Sachs explains, well, why? That doesn't seem efficient. If you're trying to optimize, don't give X enough money so he can give to Y, just give Y the money directly. But what the rabbis were doing here is they weren't only optimizing for poverty alleviation, they were also trying to optimize for alleviating shame, right? Because they know a person might feel shame if they don't have enough money to give charity to others. So that's just getting at the point that we don't actually, as humans, I think we're conceptually confused about what is the good. And when we try to boil it down to just one thing, we might shortchange other types of good, like psychological well-being, for example, or, alleviating shame. That also might be important.
Yeah. Oh, and so important. And I think it's one of those things that we have to get to. And this one by one is about the psychological as well as it is just alleviating the physical component. And often what may be seen by the world as incredible inefficiency could actually be maximum efficiency in the bigger picture and the greater good, as you said. Sigal Samuel, senior reporter for Vox's Future Perfect and co-host of the Future Perfect podcast. Also a new piece you want to check out at Vox.com. Your mileage may vary. And Sigal, I look forward to having you back because we're going to continue this conversation. This is great thinking, brilliant writing. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
All right, that's Sigal Samuel from Vox. This is a fun piece to read. It is a thoughtful piece to read. It's got me rethinking all kinds of things today in terms of what is the greater good and how do we go about this one by one? And is it inefficient or is it actually maximizing and efficient in terms of human flourishing? We'll continue the conversation. Stick around. We'll be back after top of the hour news.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. Authorities searching in Utah Lake for anyone who might have been aboard a small single-engine plane that didn't make a landing at the Provo airport. So far, there are no details as to why that plane didn't make it shore, but Sergeant Garrett Dutson revealed that there were witnesses on the water when it happened.
And I'm not sure if they're the ones that called in or if the tower's the one that called in.
It's still unclear if there were passengers on that plane. We do have a reporter on the scene at Provo Harbor bringing us the latest updates as we get them. Helene is being blamed for 28 deaths now in Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina. The storm has brought historic flooding, heavy rainfall, and tornadoes to many areas. At one point, millions of people were without power. In Georgia, Governor Brian Kemp says crews are trying to get to people who were trapped near Augusta.
We're also trying to get to multiple structures right now that we know have individuals inside that we're unable to communicate with. We'll have to literally cut our way into situations like this.
On the Florida coast near Cedar Key, residents say rows of houses and even a supermarket have just disappeared. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up on the day now 137 points, while the NASDAQ was down 70. And our KSL weather, looks like we could set some hot weather records in Utah this weekend. That's next. KSL News Time 2:01.
You know what's great about KSL's traffic coverage? Trained traffic reporters and real listeners.
Trading information and making the commute safer and faster for everyone.
Every 10 minutes on the nines, we have you covered on KSL News Radio.
Winter is coming, but there's still time to replace those drafty old windows before the cold comes and drives up your heating bill. Just make one call and take advantage of the Advanced Window Products Fall Special. $2,500 off on 10 windows or more, and that's $2,500 off their already low factory direct prices because at Advanced Window Products, they're the factory. Your windows are built in their facility right here in Salt Lake City. You're buying local, and with their lifetime guarantee, you don't ever have to call some faraway state for help. Advanced Window Products is right here, proudly backing up their work, so make one call, save on your heating bill, and get a rebate from the energy companies. Advanced Window Products offers 0% financing. They can even give you amazing new windows with no money down. And don't forget, $2,500 off their factory direct prices, but you have to call now. Advanced Window Products, 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100, or go to advancedwindows.com.
The Salt Lake Chamber is Utah's voice for business. Okay, that sounds great, but what does it really mean? Well, as Utah's largest and longest-standing business association, they support and champion community prosperity throughout the state. And if you're in business, well, that's a very good thing for you. Be sure to listen to the Chamber's Speaking on Business, weekdays at 7:20, 11:55, and 5:20 p.m. on KSL News Radio.
If you're struggling with your mortgage, there's a free government program that offers expert one-on-one advice about your mortgage options. Call 1-888-995-HOPE or visit makinghomeaffordable.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Treasury, HUD, and the Ad Council.
We have emergency traffic now, brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
We do have an accident involving a lot of vehicles, maybe even some construction vehicles. It's a little difficult to tell, but UDOT on the scene. We're still waiting for more emergency crews to arrive. This is northbound I-15 in North Salt Lake by Main Street. So that's just after the I-215 junction. We have two left lanes of traffic blocked, and that is causing stop-and-go delays passing Warm Springs Road. Right now, Utah Symphony Utah Opera tickets are $25 with shows like Cirque Cinema, Sweeney Todd, and Pirates of the Caribbean. There's something for everyone, and they have tickets to give away. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Sunny and hot through the weekend. Today's high up to 90, tomorrow up to 94, and that could set a new record for the date. Same thing Sunday. And right now, we're at 84 degrees with sunny skies. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources.
Inside Sources.
America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson.
On Utah's home for elevated conversation.
Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, the 2024 presidential election cycle is heating up. Both Democrats and Republicans are making it the most consequential election in our history, fate of the free world. It's all about winning. And maybe it's time to think again about what we think we know when it comes to winning and the fact that maybe losing might be a better win. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
When you look at everything that the major parties are going through and the billions of dollars that are being spent just to try to win and get the advantage, you have to start stepping back a little bit and just try to have a little think again moment and reassess what does that really mean? And is victory really victory? Is it a Pyrrhic victory? Are we setting up kind of a Potemkin village where we think we won, but maybe not? And what is the good in losing, and how could it impact the Democrats and Republicans? Fantastic piece by Stephen Lyle, a strategy and innovation fellow at the University of Cambridge, Judge Business School. And it is in The Hill today, thehill.com, why losing the White House might be the ultimate win. And Stephen, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here.
I love your piece. This is great thinking. And so let's start marching through this with our listeners in terms of, obviously, everybody's playing to win, and winning seems to be everything these days. But how is it that winning might actually be losing for Democrats and Republicans in 2024?
Oh, it's a great question. And, I've been thinking about it an awful lot. My research at Cambridge University is at the intersection of disruptive innovation and strategy. And, disrupting the incumbents or avoiding a disruption, by challengers, this all hinges on how we frame, our goals and define success. And just as you said, as we approach the 2024 election, what constitutes a political win? And so I really started thinking about this, and I thought about it in a historical context. One of the reasons why I was thinking about it, too, and I'm sure that you would agree, at least I have friends on both sides of the political aisles. And, many of them are apoplectic at the notion of losing the presidential election to the other party. And so part of this essay, this op-ed, was to kind of assuage some of their grief, maybe give them some therapy. Say, hey, listen, there might be reason for you to celebrate. And so let's take a look at that. And you don't need to go any further than taking a look at the Carter administration. That administration actually created what I call the Doppler effect for the GOP. And it radiated forward. Just think about that. And also, let's talk about what he started with. He had a 66% approval rating. Even Republicans. I remember my grandparents who were Republicans forever, then they voted for Jimmy Carter. They loved it. We all loved Jimmy Carter. How could you not love the peanut farmer from Plains, Georgia? Yeah. And yet, his policies, the perception of his policies, there was such antipathy against him. He went from 66% to 34% upon exit. And because he was so unpopular, this is what created this Doppler effect. Right. And it precipitated three consecutive presidential wins for the GOP. And one could argue, if not for the very historically powerful third-party candidacy of Ross Perot, George Herbert Walker Bush would have won, another term likely, right? But then you also have to look at this Doppler effect. You also have to look at how it affects the other branches of government. You have the Senate and you have the House. So what we did see is, pickups, steady increases in both of those legislative bodies, to the point that by the time Bill Clinton had won, in his first, in his first term, they lost control of the House for the first time in 40 years, and ultimately lost control of the Senate. Right. So this is that Doppler effect I'm talking about. Now you fast forward to today. We do not have presidential candidates in Harris and Trump at 66% approval ratings, right? They are both, according to Real Clear Politics, below 50%. So they're climbing out of a much lower hole than Jimmy Carter did. Now, if you add to that perceived failure in policies, we could be looking at a Doppler effect for the losing party. And I actually believe this is something that could happen. I wrote this from a bipartisan standpoint. There are takeaways here for you if you're a Democrat or you're a Republican, or put party aside. Let's say you might cross party lines and vote for So whomever you support in this election cycle, take don't put too much stock in a victory here, because both of these candidates are below 50%, and they don't have the kind of coattails that that will benefit down ballot candidates, right?
Right.
And so this is the thing. So what we're looking at likelihood here, according to Real Clear Politics, and I'm not a political pundit by trade. I'm a strategy guy. I'm an innovation guy. So I look at it from that standpoint, purely from that standpoint, that this is whoever wins is going to have a very divided legislative branch to deal with. In Trump's case, he's not, he can't win another term, so he's going to be a lame duck. In his first week, psychological lame duck for Harris. If she's still below 50% and she loses one or both, she loses the House or the Senate. So this is our political reality. I'm just saying, listen, if you are really worried about loss, there might be something to celebrate here for you in the loss, and I'm just giving you something to think about.
Yeah, no, and that's exactly what we do on this show, and we're both equal opportunity offenders and equal opportunity commenders across the political spectrum. But I love the way you're going at this. This is more in my background of this disruptive innovation and what that disruption means. Going back to 2016, I think there were many voters who voted on a single issue more than ever before on the Supreme Court, if on the Republican side, and I think there were some things that if Hillary Clinton had won would probably have been good for conservatives by not just being so dependent on filing a lawsuit every time something goes sideways. And so I love this whole thinking of don't just assume that a win is the best thing on the planet, and don't assume that a loss is the worst. It creates that moment, that disruption that you talked about, that ultimately leads to the kind of innovation that can actually produce some great results down the line. And
I call this election cycle in a historically unusual premise. And because of the relative weaknesses of both of the candidates for various reasons, and no matter what a person thinks about Trump, we know that there's a strong cult of personality at work there, And then with Harris, I talk about her as being a fictionalized candidate. Well, she didn't get a chance to go through the creation process of a nomination process. So she didn't have her own views at work. She inherited somebody else's platform, and because her organizers are not allowing her to be to be interviewed by a nonpartisan news person, a professional news person who can kind of interrogate and ask follow-up questions. So unfortunately, that gives them both an Achilles tendon going into this race. And so it's an unusual election cycle that a victory for either side could be, not something to celebrate, and a loss is not something to be too depressed about.
Yeah. This is fantastic perspective. You want to go check out this piece at The Hill, thehill.com. It's called Why Losing the White House Might Be the Ultimate Win. It is fantastic thinking, really brilliant writing as well. And Stephen Lyle, again, Strategy and Innovation Fellow at the University of Cambridge. Thanks so much for joining us today. This is great. We look forward to having you back and continuing this conversation.
Thank you. I love Salt Lake City, and just love it.
Fantastic. Well, we will have you back on for sure. Again, that's Stephen Lyle, Strategy and Innovation Fellow at the University of Cambridge. Great piece at thehill.com today. And I love this whole idea of the unusual premise and being careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. And it might be a great thing. It may not be such a great thing. And why losing is always painful. Sometimes losing creates a disruption that leads to greater innovation and greater success down the road. And there's a host of things that we can unpack, especially when it comes to the political space, in how that could actually be the case. And as Stephen pointed out, that Doppler effect in terms of what gets projected forward could be a game changer for decades to come. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. In a big election year like this,
Trump called for a grand jury to investigate.
News happens fast.
Harris said she wants an assault weapons ban.
A significant paradigm shift for the Secret Service.
On the way to work, searching for lunch, or heading home, come here to catch up. We have you covered in the car at 102.7 FM.
Hey BYU football fans, this is Mitch Harper. Another BYU football game week is here as the Cougars return to the road to take on the Baylor Bears. And to get ready for the Big 12 battle on the Brazos River, visit your local Macy's grocery store for all of your game day needs. We've got great prices on all of your favorite game day items like burger patties, made fresh dips, and more. And did you know your favorite tailgate foods are also now offered through Macy's Catering? They offer a wide variety of catering platters from smoked meats to wings and even desserts. Catering is available to order online or in store. So whether you're having a small or large party, Macy's has you covered. Never miss a deal when you sign up for the Macy's Rewards program and emails so you can get the ads sent straight to your inbox each week.
Hi, this is BYU captain and defensive end Tyler Batty. It's football season again. Make sure to shop your local Macy's grocery stores for all your favorite tailgate foods.
Get game day ready with Macy's. Happy shopping.
Emergency traffic on KSL News Radio brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon right now northbound on I-15. Traffic being held back temporarily. It's not an actual closure, but it's due to this accident near Main Street in North Salt Lake, so just after the North Interchange, the I-215 junction. They're trying to get all of the vehicles, and there are a lot of them, moved out of traffic and over to the right shoulder so they can open up the left lanes of travel. But right now, we have stop-and-go delays back to almost 6 North. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
This is Derek Overstreet of the New Millennium Group and host of Stop Working and Start Living Radio. If you're close to or in retirement and you don't have a tax plan, call us right now, 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370. Listen, our country's been spending like never before, and the tax bill is coming soon. If you need an income tax strategy and a financial plan that will get you through the rest of your life, give my team a call, 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370. If you want an investment plan that allows you to keep more of your gains and pay less taxes, give us a call, 888-999-6370. My team specializes in the type of plan that will get you retired 3 to 5 years sooner than you thought possible. So, get a no-cost tax analysis by calling 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370. My team is standing by now.
Everywhere you look, things are getting more expensive. So at Consumer Cellular, we're lowering the price for those 50 and up. Now you can get unlimited talk, text, and data for $30 a line when you buy 2. That's just $60 a month for 2 unlimited lines. So if you're 50 and up, make the switch and save. Come on, you've earned this. Call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com today. Requires 2 lines of service, age validation, and credit approval, subject to system and area limits, taxes, and other fees apply.
Mom, meet Sarah.
From first-time Nana moments.
Welcome to Flight 101.
To annual girls trip moments. Your can't-miss moments are worth protecting against RSV. If you're 75 or older or 60 plus with a chronic condition like asthma, COPD, heart disease, or severe diabetes, you're at higher risk of landing in the hospital from RSV. And there are no prescription RSV treatments. Check eligibility and schedule your RSV vaccine at vaxassist.com.
So where should we go next?
Sponsored by Pfizer.
If you ordered a steak sandwich and they served you bologna, you'd be ticked off.
B-O-L-O-G-N-A or B-A-L-O-N-E-Y. It doesn't matter how you spell it. It's still bologna.
Hi, this is Jason.
And Kathy of Window World.
We could go on and on about Window World, but folks, it's all about you.
Your home and what you need.
Window World is America's #1 window replacement company.
Call Window World at 801-281-8111.
Or check windowworldutah.com. And as Doug always said,
that's no baloney.
Attention commercial property managers and business owners. Say snowplow 3 times and who shows up? GoPave Utah. Clearing snow faster than you can say sandworms. That's GoPaveUtah.com.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, searchers trying to locate anybody who was aboard a light plane that crashed into Utah Lake. Second, the states along the path of Tropical Storm Helene are sizing up damage from the storm. At least 28 reported killed. And third, Utah's national parks will be busy this weekend since admission is free, but it's also going to be hot. 84 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
America's political polarization is something society has shrugged its shoulders at, scratched its head over for far too long. And, of course, we continue to say that we're not that divided. We're not as divided as many in the political class or the fundraising class or the political party class want us all to believe. But there's some interesting new data that's emerging, some revelations about an important piece of the puzzle. And it's that many politicians may be misrepresenting their constituents, not necessarily out of malice or ill intent, but out of genuine misunderstanding. So the disconnect is both a challenge, but it's also an opportunity for American democracy to get better, to reduce the polarization and improve what this should be about in a constitutional republic, improved representation. Nicholas Stephanopoulos is the Kirkland and Ellis Professor of Law at Harvard Law School and a member of the academic team behind True Views. Has a great piece in The Hill today. You can check that out at thehill.com, saying that America is less polarized than it seems. Politicians need better data. And Professor, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Fantastic piece today. And let's just start at the very beginning. As you look at this from a data standpoint, I think we all agree we're probably not as polarized as some want us to believe. But what does the data tell us, and why is it that we're not getting that data to the right people in the right places?
Yeah, great. Right. So the data about public opinion suggests that there are a lot of moderate centrist Americans. The American public is not divided into very liberal and very conservative people with almost nobody in the middle. But then the trouble is that detailed data about what people think at local levels is almost always absent. And so politicians usually don't know what people think about abortion, about taxes, about gun control within districts or zip codes or localities. And so in the absence of actual data, it turns out politicians misperceive public opinion. There's a really consistent pattern where Democratic politicians think that their constituents are more liberal than they really are, and Republican politicians think that their constituents are more conservative than they really are. And so that misperception appears to be one of the drivers of why politicians are more polarized than voters themselves are.
Yeah, I think that's such a key piece of this whole puzzle. I just want to unpack that a little bit more because, again, I think you're exactly right that if the Democratic politicians are saying, hey, I think my people are further to the left, and if the Republicans are saying, now our constituents are further to the right, that's going to get us more of that extreme, and it tends to also get us the loud and the noisy, and it also tends to shut down that movable middle, those who are, as you said, in that more moderate space in between, who then suddenly feel like they don't have a voice, and as a result, sometimes they're the ones who end up disconnecting from political conversations and the public square.
Yeah, you mentioned the noisy people. So part of what I think is driving the politicians' misperceptions is they don't hear equally from all of their constituents. They hear a lot from campaign donors who are well known to be a very ideologically extreme group of people. They hear from activists. They hear from people who care a lot about politics who tend to have pretty liberal or pretty conservative views. And so they might kind of naturally misinterpret what regular people think, given that they're not really hearing from regular people. And so the point of the True Views site that you mentioned is to try to fill this informational hole, to provide for politicians, for journalists, for candidates, for everybody, a lot more data about what people really think on lots of policies and at lots of different political levels.
Yeah, and then let's dig into True Views, a new site. You're part of this effort, and talk to us just a little bit in terms of where you hope this goes and what you hope it does for politicians, for citizens, for journalists, and for just good coverage in general.
Yeah, so the hope is that all sorts of actors in the political world will start to refer to True Views whenever there's a public policy debate about some issue. You know, when abortion, when taxes, when immigration is being discussed, everyone should want to know, well, what do people in my district, in my town, in my county, in my state, what do they think about that? I don't think that public opinion is or should be the only driver of what politicians do or what policies get enacted. But almost everyone agrees that it should be part of the conversation. And so True Views enables it to become part of the conversation. And so, of course, everything hinges on awareness of this data, penetration of this data. It's no use to have True Views if nobody knows about it. So, part of why I'm here today, part of why I wrote the column for The Hill, is just to try to spread awareness of this new tool.
Yeah, it is a great tool, and it leads to something you noted in your piece, referring back to some immigration scholars in the American kaleidoscope. I love that whole framing that it's not just red states and blue states, red districts, blue districts, liberal, conservative, but there is much more of a kaleidoscope that we all would be wise to look at all of the nooks and crannies and the nuances, if again, especially for elected officials, so that they can truly represent those that elected them.
Yeah, what kind of surprised me initially, but now kind of delights me with True Views, is when you look at the spatial patterns of public opinion, you don't just see red and blue states. You don't even just see blue cities and red exurvia. You see checkerboards. You see all kinds of interesting variation. And so it's given me a new appreciation of how complicated our country is. And it doesn't just boil down to familiar red and blue cleavages. And so I've really enjoyed learning that about public opinion from the data and the mapping that the True Views makes available.
Wonderful. And Professor, before I let you go, give us just one thing you think is a little under the radar that you've seen as you've gone through this, as you've started to move this effort forward. What has surprised you? What have you learned? What do you hope people will do different or think different as a result?
Yeah, so I think that there's a lot of moderation out there. That's one takeaway. There, on many public policy issues, there are a lot of moderates. There are also a lot of issues that the public is not that divided over. So True Views captures something like 30 or 40 different issues, and many of them are issues where most Americans take what might be called a liberal position or what might be called a conservative position. We don't always have the country split 50-50 with a lot of liberals on one side and a lot of conservatives on the other side. So it just goes again to how once you start digging into public opinion, you see patterns, you see complexity that go beyond the headlines on how divided we are now.
I love this, and this is an important space. Go check this out. TrueViews.org is the website, TrueViews.org. And Professor Stephanopoulos, we appreciate you joining us. This is an important part of getting to the better conversation, the higher level conversation that can help us move the country forward in a much, much better way. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. It was my pleasure.
All right, we're going to go ahead and step aside for some bottom of the hour news, but we got more Inside Sources coming up for you. Stick around. We'll be right back.
It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour, a first responder among the deaths reported along the path of Hurricane Helene as it moved through Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina. So far, 28 total deaths have been reported. The governor of Georgia asking people to stay off the roads during the flooding emergency. Searchers trying to locate or recover whoever was aboard a light plane that crashed into Utah Lake this morning. It was coming in for a landing at the Provo airport. Apparently didn't make it all the way to the runway. Not clear whether there were passengers on board when it went down. Salt Lake City is hopping this weekend. The executive director of the Downtown Alliance, Dee Brewer, says we'll see over 100,000 people coming into the city for events like FanX, the Utah football game, the circus at the Delta Center, and more.
So really, all the cylinders are firing downtown.
Brewer recommends knowing before going, so have a plan for where you want to park and then a plan B. And if you have your heart set on a certain restaurant, good idea to make a reservation. No matter what, though, he says it should be a great time and the perfect place to see your favorite costumed superheroes walking around town. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average closing trading today up 137 points. The NASDAQ, though, was down 70, and the S&P 500 down about 7. And our KSL weather looks like it'll be sunny and hot through the weekend before things cool off next week. KSL News Time, 2:31.
We hope you have the right app on your phone for news. You probably have dozens.
But the KSL News Radio app, well, it makes our live stream super easy.
Plus, our talk shows are right there as podcast for your workday.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
Do you have chirping smoke detectors? What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and if you've ever experienced chirping smoke detectors, you already know how annoying it can be. A great first step to try and stop the chirping is to change the batteries. If the chirping continues, it's possible that your smoke detector has gone bad. As a matter of fact, a lot of people don't even realize that manufacturers recommend replacing the smoke detector altogether after 10 years. If you remove the smoke detector from the wall, on the back you should find a date of when it was made. Do a little math and you'll know how old it is. Now, Any Hour Services knows being a homeowner means you've got a list a mile long of things to do around the house, and check my electrical system probably isn't one of them. That's why we've put together this radio special for any homeowners listening. One of our licensed electricians will perform a comprehensive inspection of your electrical system that includes testing those smoke detectors and give you a full written report for only $29. But you have to mention this ad when you call. Call Any Hour Services to schedule at 801-443-7300. 801-443-7300. Any Hour Services.
Nearly 70% of Utah's land is controlled by the federal government, severely limiting Utah's ability to actively manage and protect our natural resources. Our families, businesses, and communities know there's a better way. Utahns have been good stewards of our public lands for generations. That's why we're asking each and every Utahn to get informed, speak up, and learn more at standforourland.utah.gov.
Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy is a serious heart condition. Some symptoms include being short of breath, feeling tired, or having dizziness or chest pain. My HCM impacted how I felt and what I could do. So I asked my cardiologist about treatment advances that gave me new options. That conversation was big for me. That's why I'm working with Bristol Myers Squibb to raise awareness about HCM and to help others like me. Talk to your cardiologist today and visit hcmrealtalk.com to learn more.
Sponsored by Bristol Myers Squibb.
Hey, pet parents! With Progressive's collision coverage, you get extra protection for your cat or dog, because there's nothing worse than seeing your pet hurt. Like when you see their face after accidentally stepping on their tail, and you say, "I'm so sorry, Mr. Pickles." But as you kiss his nose and rub his little belly welly, you know Mr. Pickles is thinking, "You betrayed me." Anywho, Progressive pays up to $1,000 in vet bills if your pet is injured in an auto accident. Learn more at Progressive.com and watch where you step. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Collision coverage subject to policy terms. Not available in all states.
Emergency traffic now brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. And here's Ricky Meese.
Emergency crews have literally just pulled away and wrapped up this accident northbound I-15 after the north interchange near Main Street in North Salt Lake. All lanes of traffic are open. However, we have residual stop-and-go delays back to 600 North. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Sunny and hot through the weekend. Today's high 90. Tomorrow and Sunday up to 94, and that could set new records for those days. And right now, 84 degrees and sunny. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com for Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Of course, throughout the week this week, we've been watching the big fake fights and the false choice as Congress once again punted the ball on passing what they're supposed to do, and that is to fund the government properly. And they've done that to the 20th of December, where we'll get to do this all over again. And, of course, next year we're already anticipating big debates over taxes in America, But one that often gets under the radar just a little bit that is equally important, and the impact on all of us is huge, and that is with the Farm Bill. That'll impact everyone. The funding for that runs out at the end of the year. And we want to get underneath the hood in terms of what's going on in that. Will we get another last-minute extension? Will it be a short extension? Or will it be more in the 5-year range, which I think is what a lot of those who produce our food and fiber around the country are looking for? Saul Elbeen's a person who covers science and climate and the state of Texas for The Hill. Has a great piece in thehill.com. And Saul, welcome to the show.
Boyd, great to be here.
So give us a little under the hood. I know most people didn't wake up this morning thinking about the Farm Bill, but it clearly was a matter that got some heated discussions going on, at least behind the scenes this week in Washington. What's the state of play, and what should we be watching for?
Well, Boyd, when I was on here a couple months ago, call me naive, but I did sort of think we might have a deal by now, and we certainly do not. So just as a quick refresher for listeners, the Farm Bill is a every 5-year package of items that covers basically everything in the food system. It backs crop insurance, crop subsidies, and it also pays for most of America's food aid and nutrition aid programs. And that is set to expire, well, it technically expires on Monday, and then funding runs out at the end of December. Now, we're running currently on the last fumes of the 2018 Farm Bill, which failed to pass a new bill last year, and we're now coming into the end of that first extension. So the question now is, are we going to get a 1-year extension, which, as you've said, producers really don't want? Are we going to get a 5-year extension? Or in the true nightmare scenario, are we going to get nothing? And we can talk about what that's going to mean.
Yeah. So let's break each of those down. I know there, in your reporting, you pointed out there were over 300 agricultural groups flew to Washington to lobby for this. Tell us what they met with. What was the reaction in terms of what we're hearing from the Hill, and then what are we likely to see moving forward?
So what they told Congress folks was that they need this support. Prices are going up, climate change is driving increased extreme weather. They feel like they're getting hit from both sides. And they also feel like farms aren't run year to year. This isn't like, as we talked about last time, the defense industry, where everybody sort of assumes there's going to be every year there's going to be a new debate, but every year it's going to pass. This is a big fight every time it happens. And people can't make plans on a 12-month time scale. They need to, you don't buy equipment on that kind of time scale. So what they said to Congress was, pass a bill, and please don't pass another 1-year extension. And look, Boyd, it seems like Congress heard them. Yesterday, we reported there was a meeting between the 4 heads, senior and ranking members of both Congress and House Ag committees. Everybody on that team has said they want a deal, and they want a deal by the end of the year. The trouble is, it's going to be really hard to do.
Yeah, and I think it will be increasingly difficult, obviously, with the omnibus that will surely be waiting in the lame duck session there after everyone comes back from Thanksgiving and kind of nursing whatever wounds they have from the election cycle. And so as you look at that, I want to get into something you got me thinking about, this whole idea in terms of how our farms, how our ranchers operate is so different from other things. And if there's not that certainty, it's a tough way to run any business, but it's an incredibly difficult way to run a farm or an agricultural enterprise.
Yeah, and the particular structure of the Farm Bill is really weird. It's that there were, the last big set of permanent legislation was passed way back in the late 1940s. And under that legislation, for example, if we were to revert to that, which is what would happen if the Farm Bill expires, history would essentially snap back. Suddenly, the level of prices that milk has to be at in order for government support to kick in more than doubles, which means that milk prices more than double. And that's, an extreme example. They sometimes call it the dairy cliff, but there's examples like that all across commodities. Now, look, there's a lot to criticize about the current farm system, and there's a lot of people on both the left and the right who are more populist or who are more progressive, depending on their bent, who say the system we have now is incredibly not resilient. It backs up big ag. It's essentially, ridden with crony capitalism. And there's a lot to be said about all those arguments. But the fact is, nobody wants to see a sudden snap into the unknown.
Yeah, I think that sudden snap, is the big risk for everyone. And as you said, the debate has been about those subsidies to the large commercial growers. You got the populist space in there as well, the cronyism component. It has all the all the wonderful makings from the swamp in Washington D.C.
One of the best.
And so how do we change the dynamic on that? Who are those people up on the Hill who maybe are looking at this a little bit different? And while it may not impact this particular round, might be laying the groundwork to do something a little different in the future.
So as we talked about last time, there's some interesting left-right consensus. One of the last real places where you'll see like Matt Gaetz and AOC on the same kind of legislative project, which is trying to push towards a more resilient food system. The trouble is that those people really don't agree on things like climate change and conservation funding. Honestly, Boyd, I'd love to be able to point you to somebody who's doing really serious, good work, moving us in that direction. There are plenty of people who are talking about it. There are plenty of people who are trying to advance legislation. There are plenty of people who are fighting monopoly. But right now, where we are is we need to pass the Farm Bill in order to keep the system running the way that it is. Now, if the Farm Bill fails, we're going to be in essentially revolutionary territory. Everything will change, and maybe that'll open the possibility space for some real good things to happen down the road. Personally, I wouldn't want to bet on that.
Yeah, that's a tough bet, and don't think I'd be taking that one for sure, especially given the dynamics of the timing of all of this. What are you hearing in terms of the fact that this will likely get taken up in the lame duck Congress, and it's going to have to compete with the funding of the rest of the government in the process?
Well, it is somewhat, I think, less controversial overall than funding the rest of the government. I think there is a more clear path through here than for a lot of the other things that are going to show up on Mike Johnson's desk, House Speaker Mike Johnson's desk. And I will say the people who are in charge of getting this thing through are feeling a lot of pressure from constituents, and they've all said that's a really big priority. The problem is the election is already brutal. It's likely to get more brutal. And they are going to have a very short window in order to get stuff done. But as some folks, who are inside the negotiating team on the Republican side of the House told me, does anybody think it's going to be easier next year? Does anybody think the margins are going to be less tight? I mean, unless one side scores a landslide and then we get something passed on their terms, seeding the ground for the next fight, it's hard to see how next year is going to be any easier. So I do think, if I had to put my money down, I do think there is real motivation to get something real passed. That's probably going to make everyone unhappy.
Yeah.
But when I say I'm going to put my money down, it wouldn't be much money.
Yeah, exactly. And if you can get everybody upset, then you're probably on at least a decent path to actually
kind of one, anyway.
That's right. Absolutely. Great perspective as always. Saul Elving covers science, the climate, and the state of Texas for The Hill. A great piece at thehill.com. Saul, thanks for joining us as always. I'm sure we will be talking to you again soon as this continues to march its way forward.
Thank you, Boyd.
All right. Again, that's Saul Elving joining us. And this is a tricky one because there's plenty to go around in terms of problems with the Farm Bill. There are plenty of pieces of crony capitalism in there. There's plenty of things in there for big ag and subsidies for large companies and organizations. And there's all kinds of things that are going to all the wrong places for all the wrong reasons. And so there are problems with it. And as Saul pointed out, if we just don't do anything, that's going to create its own set of problems. And the fact that we do have this kind of uncertainty on a regular basis is not good for the people who do the hard work and heavy lifting to make sure we have food on the table and too often go under the radar of a lot of the other things going on in our nation's capital. So, one, I am glad that there were enough folks to go back to D.C. and to have that conversation. And hopefully it will lead to a different kind of conversation. I'm probably with Saul. I'm not going to bet the ranch or bet the farm that they're going to get it right this time. But perhaps some of those unlikely coalitions, some of those unique connections might come together, and maybe they can have the beginning of a different way to go about it to make sure we get the right result, both for our farmers and for the citizens here in the country. All right, we'll step aside for one last break. We'll come back with some final thoughts on Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Doug Wright. Over the years, I've talked a lot about hard water. Takes years off the life of water heaters and other appliances in your home. Leaves scum on the shower walls, and you almost need a jackhammer to remove that. I've talked about how Connecticut of Utah, an authorized Connecticut dealer, their water softeners are maintenance-free. You just don't need adjustment, and they do the job with 2/3 less salt than other softeners. But today, I want to talk about the exhilarating feeling of stepping into a hot bath or shower and feeling that pure, soft water cascade over your skin. It feels like every pore in your body wants to stand up and start singing. And afterward, there are no itchy hard water deposits sticking all over you. You really should look into a soft water system from Connecticut of Utah, an authorized Connecticut dealer. You can learn more about Connecticut by giving them a call at 801-576-8600 or log on to Softwater Utah. Connecticut of Utah, an authorized Connecticut dealer. Then sit back and enjoy your shower even more.
Hi, my name is Kendon Holdaway, and I work for the National Kidney Foundation of Utah and Idaho. Before that, I worked as a dialysis technician at the largest dialysis center in Utah. And before that, I was diagnosed with chronic kidney disease at age 14. However, I am one of the lucky ones. I have an amazing mother who gave me a second chance. She donated her kidney to me, and it changed my life. Thanks to her and a scholarship from the Kidney Foundation, I was able to graduate college, get married, and apply to medical school in hopes of becoming a doctor. Sadly, there are many who are not as lucky as I am. Every car you donate to towcars.org gives hope and help to 3,000 patients like me, many of whom are still waiting for their miracle. Towing is free and donations are tax deductible. Keep donations local by donating online at towkars.org. That's tow cars with a K, like kidney.
Join Lagoon's maintenance and construction team for the most thrilling job around. Lagoon is looking for exceptional ride technicians, skilled carpenters, electricians, plumbers, and more. Lagoon offers excellent training programs with amazing career opportunities. These positions are both full-time and year-round. Apply online today at lagoonpark.com/jobs. Join the Lagoon team and help us maintain the fun. Must be 18 years of age or older to apply.
Tommy! I can't wait for golf this weekend, huh, buddy? Time flies. Love you, man. Oh, don't forget your knee brace again. We aren't in college anymore.
Moments together matter, so help protect yourself from RSV. If you're 75 or older or 60 plus with a chronic condition like asthma, COPD, heart disease, or severe diabetes, you're at higher risk of landing in the hospital from RSV, and there are no prescription RSV treatments. Check eligibility and schedule your RSV vaccine at vaxassist.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Right now at Wendy's, you can get a small Frosty for $1. And literally everyone is going. The car behind you, going to get a $1 Frosty. The car ahead of you, already had one, going for a second. The person who cut you off earlier, you guessed it, $1 Frosty. Maybe it's all a sign for you to go get one. Just don't cut anyone off. No one likes that person. The iconic Frosty for $1, gotta be Wendy's.
Limited time only at participating U.S. Wendy's. Not valid in a combo. Prices may be higher in Alaska, Hawaii, California, and via third-party delivery.
A secure retirement just doesn't happen by accident. When that day comes, what's most important to you? Are you sure to have more money than month? What about unexpected medical costs? Do you want to leave something to the kids or the grandkids? I'm Jeff Jr. from Trajan Wealth, and I want you to know we specialize in these questions and can help make your retirement dream a reality with some of the highest guarantees in the business. Imagine getting up to a guaranteed 12% growth on your retirement income and up to a 30% bonus up front just for opening an account. If you have funds sitting idle in an old 401k or IRA, consider guaranteeing it to secure the peace of mind you deserve. Don't leave your financial security to chance. Take advantage of the highest guarantees I've seen in my career. Call Trajan today at 801-899-7600. That's 801-899-7600. Or visit us online at TrajanWealth.com.
Annuity guarantees are based on the claims-paying ability of the issuing insurance company.
Have you ever wondered, what's the difference between musical theater and opera? After all, when the curtain rises, they both tell dramatic stories using gorgeous sets and costumes, and both feature talented artists and melodies that will get stuck in your head. But you'll hear the difference. At Utah Opera, breathtaking voices combine with your Utah Symphony to create a musical experience unlike any other. This October, join us for audience favorite Sweeney Todd. Tickets start at $21 at utahopera.org.
Did you know 96% of Americans lose an average of $111,000 in Social Security income? And it's because they claim their benefits at the wrong time. Don't lose $111,000 in Social Security income that's rightfully yours. Learn how you could wring every nickel out of your benefits on Retirement Solutions Radio this Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock, right here on KSL, News Radio 1027.
Steve, my sister-in-law went to NPS in Layton, one of the stores that's got great prices on groceries. And
Did they get her?
They did. She was like, I was looking around. I was like, okay. But then she's like, oh, wow, that's a great price on this. Oh, no, that's a great price on that. And she finally told my brother, all right, go get the cart. Because that's what you do when you come to NPS.
You know, I think that's the hardest thing sometimes is convincing people that the prices are so good and that this is all brand new merchandise.
New in box, original tags on it.
Yeah.
What makes NPS so great, though, is because they'll save you plenty. They price check every item before it's even put on the shelf. They check other competitors' retail pricing before it goes on the shelf, and then mark that down between 30 to 70% off, so you save instantly. And then in each store, they'll have a deal where it's an additional % off on clothing, electronics, bedding, all these things, all the stuff that you need. Go to there first, then hit the grocery store. You'll save your money, and you'll get everything that you need.
You won't believe how much you saved.
1150 North Main Street in Layton, 475 North State in Orem, and 1600 South Empire Road in Salt Lake City.
Attention commercial property managers and business owners. Say snowplow 3 times, and who shows up? GoPave Utah. Clearing snow faster than you can say sandworms. That's GoPaveUtah.com.
You know, in Box Elder County, they're all about the bucket list. Want to go birding at the premier birding destination in the western United States? Well, check off the Bear River Migratory Bird Refuge. How about land art? The spiral jetty and sun tunnels will leave you inspired. Or stand on the spot where the Union and Central Pacific Railroads joined and forged the destiny of a nation. Yep, Golden Spike National Historical Park is like no other place. Check. Splash, boat, camp, or fish your day away? Willard Bay State Park will guarantee a good time. Soak in a natural hot spring with the highest mineral content in the world? That would be Crystal Hot Springs. You'll feel rejuvenated. Eat at Utah's original steakhouse. Maddox Ranch House is perfection. Check. A 1920s diner. The Idle Owl Cafe will transport you back in time. As you empty your Box Elder County bucket list, you'll find a whole new set of adventures to fill it up again. Fill up your bucket list at visitboxeldercounty.com.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, searchers trying to locate anybody who was aboard a light plane that crashed into Utah Lake. Second, the states along the path of Tropical Storm Helene are sizing up damage from the storm, at least 28 reported killed. And third, Utah's national parks will be busy this weekend since admission is free, but it's also going to be hot. 84 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson as we round out the day and round out the week. A few things we've been thinking about. Hope you've learned some things along the week. That's why we actually do this show. Mostly so I can learn new things and talk to some extraordinary people and guests. And if you've missed anything along the way, of course, you can always go to kslpodcast.com and just click on Inside Sources, and you'll see all of our amazing guests appear right before your very eyes. You can click on any one of those little individual mini podcasts and give you just a nice chance to take 10, 15 minutes and think again about what you heard and how it might apply into your world. And so, again, just go to kslpodcast.com. You can always go back through all of our amazing guests. And I actually want to go back to one of our guests from earlier in the show today. If you missed our conversation with Segal Samuel from Vox, it got me thinking. I'm still thinking about it. And there are so many things to think about when we think about charity and when we think about compassion and optimization. And Segal did this beautiful job of saying, hey, we're all trying to be optimizers all the time. And sometimes that kind of efficiency ends up being not all that effective. Sometimes when we look at those who are unhoused or who have fallen into poverty or addiction or whatever it may be, we just want to put them on an assembly line that's going to be incredibly efficient, very effective, solve the problem, deal with it, and move on. But that's not how human beings work. It just doesn't work that way. You can't do it as an assembly line because the very first problem with that, yes, you can say that would be optimization. Just take the unhoused person here, drop them off, let them work their way through whatever the magical optimization machine does, and they'll come out the other side and everything will be great. or someone facing addiction, or someone who's been in and out of the criminal justice system. But just that as a beginning is the end. It doesn't work. Why? Because people are not liabilities to be managed. They're human beings. They have dignity, they have infinite value, and they have potential that has to be developed. But it doesn't get developed on an assembly line. It's one by one. And sometimes what seems to be incredibly inefficient can actually be maximum efficiency because people are involved. You may recall a few weeks ago we had the UN ambassador from Sudan was here in the state of Utah. And he said, there are some donations that have a multiplier effect to them that is unmeasurable. A multiplier that's immeasurable. That's my kind of math, for one thing. But when we talked about what that was, it came back to not that they were incredibly efficient at dropping off humanitarian supplies or aid or writing a big check. It was because there was a human network behind it of individuals who would treat individuals in need as individuals. Not an assembly line, not an optimization model of peak efficiency of what we're going to do with this dollar to make a difference in this particular area of the world, because it's about people. And one of the things that I loved in Segal Samuel's piece in Vox, and you should check that out at vox.com, by the way, because it is great. There is some great thinking there. But you have to start looking at, our compassion, our desires to do good. That's good stuff. But optimization always has limits, especially when it comes to people. And not everyone's going to respond the same way. Not everyone's going to accept help the same way. Not everyone's going to need the same help the same way, even though they might be in similar circumstances. And so we have to look at it in a more efficient way, and that requires us to deal with people and to get to people. She used some really interesting combinations of stories and examples from history. Talked about some of the rabbis talking about how one rabbi gave someone who had just fallen into poverty a big fancy meal, and another who acted as that person's servant for the day. There was also an interesting conversation about how much we give to one person, and is there a way that we can do that so that they can turn around and give to someone else? So overcoming the shame and the guilt, those feelings of worthlessness that often accompany those who are in need. And that's true whether it's someone, again, who's dealing with addiction or someone who has found themselves unsheltered and unhoused, or whether it's someone in the state of Florida tonight who suddenly doesn't have anything that they had yesterday. And so what do? Yes, there are things that we should do very efficiently and very effectively in the short term. But if we're actually going to make a difference in all of this, then we got to get to the individual level. And how do we help them have that dignity? How do we help them see their own dignity, even in the midst of some pretty dire circumstances or situations? And so that's just something to think again about as we roll into the weekend. Again, are we looking for optimization, or should we be optimizing our compassion and the way we help individuals, because to me, that's the real bottom line. And how we actually get to some of the other conversations we had today about human flourishing. And what are the things that we need to promote and strengthen in our society in order to ensure that human flourishing is the net result of all the things that we're doing, whether that's education, whether that's poverty prevention, or any other government program, or anything that we're doing in the public square as part of civil society. We all have to get to the right result. And again, it's not just about optimizing, because we're dealing with people. And people are much better. That wraps it up for us on Inside Sources today here on KSL News Radio. I'm Boyd Matheson. Thanks for joining us. And as always, as you go out into the world today, don't just optimize, have some compassion. But go see something that inspires, say something that uplifts, and do something that makes a difference.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.